What up, everybody? It's PJ here, and I'm joined again for this week's Madden video by the one and only Excabandai.
What's up? It's been a minute.
Yeah, but yeah, since you've been gone, I've been making predictions about the Giants and Bucs game that have sucked pretty bad. So I guess
Rip.
let's talk. Yeah, I guess let's talk about that and have a nice little vent session about this defense. Well, as we get ready to talk about how the Packers have done the last couple weeks, looks like I drew somebody playing as the Cowboys this week, so I must crush them.
Crush them. Crush them hard.
Let's do this real quick. Get the proper kickoff before the actual kickoff to the video. Discussions, at least. You ain't running across the field. I've watched that too many times recently.
Good luck.
I think I'm gonna need it. Since the last time I did a Madden video with you on here, I did like all new settings that I saw online and stuff. So hopefully I play alright.
Alright.
You know what? I've seen that too many times too, and I still bid on it.
Yeah.
But anyways, so yeah, I guess let's start with that Monday night game against the Giants. And, you know, Packers were coming off a nice little winning streak there against, the Giants, or not the Giants, the Chargers, the Lions, and the Chiefs. And going up against the Giants, they were 6.5 point favorites. But, man, they just did not look like the same team that they had been the previous month.
Nope.
So, I guess starting on the defensive side of the ball, as Preston Smith just absolutely destroyed back there on that play. I think everybody was kind of expecting the Packers to generate a ton of pressure against Tommy DeVito, the third string rookie quarterback, who had been getting sacked, what was it, like 26 times total in the 4 games before the Packers game? And,
it was quite a lot.
Yeah, not to mention, I think he got sacked like another 7 times today against the Saints, so you're expecting, he might get some quick, kind of decent throws in there, but with the amount of pressure he would be getting, maybe he'll have a turnover or two. But I think on my prediction, I said he would probably have a turnover or two and be held to about 200 yards passing. And I mean, he only had 158 yards passing. The problem was there was only 4 incompletions to start with, 17 to 21. Ended up as the freaking NFC Player of the Week because he also added 71 yards rushing. Just kept breaking out of pressure and running free. I was about to be so mad if that was a pick. But I mean, overall, he looked solid, but that still was annoying. And I was honestly expecting more of a Saquon Barkley. And I had mentioned I was surprised that he hadn't really had a big 100-yard performance outside of one game this year. So I thought maybe this would be the week, especially with our run defense, as I hit a touchdown there to Musgrave, that Saquon would, possibly break the 100-yard mark. And he didn't quite get there. He was at 20 carries for 86 yards, 2 touchdowns, but kind of short-range touchdowns. And, at the start of it, I think he was 15 carries for 31 yards or something like that.
Yeah, it was pretty low.
Yeah, but then, near the end of the game when you got to have the stops and everything, all of a sudden it was 34-yarder, and luckily for us, he ended up fumbling it just kind of out of nowhere to give the Packers a shot. But even with the game on the line, again, they capitalize on the Barkley fumble, take the lead, and end up just letting the Giants kind of waltz downfield, and the big play being the pass to Robinson for 32 yards against Nixon. So overall, just not a fun night. Any thoughts on that one, Zach?
The offense looked out of sorts. I don't really know what was wrong. I know that the wind was a factor. There was some clips where they showed some passes that ended up being errant that looked like they were on target, and then all of a sudden the ball just moved. But having said that, if that's happening in the game, then you need to adjust your offensive game plan to run the ball more or have more short throws that are more likely to be successful given the wind conditions are harder to account for further up the field on longer passes. The fumble by Jordan Love was just a bad play. I'm not really sure why they ran that play. It seemed like unnecessary, and he fumbled on it. And then the interception, even if he wasn't getting pressured, it wasn't a great decision.
Yeah.
And the ball ended up being a duck. So I couldn't tell from the replay if he got if his hand got hit as he was throwing it or not. But either way, it ended up not being a very good pass, and it was an easy interception. Defensively, there's no reason that DeVito should look like a future Hall of Famer against, well, any defense right now. I'm sure that he's got talent. I'm sure he's got skills. But he hadn't looked very good so far. And then he played us, and he looked like he should be a productive Hall of Fame the very next day.
Yeah, it's like, I want to say, just as far as the running game portion of it went, he almost had as many rushing yards in that one game as he had his entire career so far entering that moment. So that was pretty brutal.
Yeah, not a good look by the defense.
Yeah. And I think my biggest frustration with the defense on that one was just, once again, another 200-yard performance allowed as a unit. I saw, I think it was Acme Packing Company. This was the 4th time this year as the Packers defense gave up 200 plus yards, and nobody else had more than 2 such performances. And they tracked it back to like 2021, and Green Bay's had like 6 games like that, and I think that's like the 3rd most, only behind the Giants and the Lions. And Green Bay's 1-5 in those 6 games. The only win that we had randomly was against the Browns on Christmas Day. Baker Mayfield and company at that moment. So yeah, I mean, it was just frustrating watching them constantly getting gashed on the ground, like. And then, like you kind of went into on offense, somewhere right now, Jaden Reed's running another jet sweep somewhere.
I know, they ran so many. Like, it was to the point that I was expecting it. And if I'm expecting it, the Giants' defense is expecting it.
Yeah. And it was like, going into that game, Giants tended to be like an aggressive blitzing team, but they don't usually get to the quarterback. They only had 21 sacks entering the year as a unit, and 11 of those were from Thibodeau. So they were bottom 5 in sacks. They were bottom 5 in like quarterback hits, I believe. The one thing that they did well entering that game was just getting turnovers. They had something like 8 in the last 3 weeks before that one. So when I was going into that with the predictions and everything, I was thinking, all right, this sounds like it'll be somewhat similar to how the Chiefs game went. They were giving up 5 yards a carry, or close to 5 yards a carry. So it's like, why not take that, let A.J. Dillon and company cook, just try to get, them to focus and trying to stop the run, and then you start popping your play action. And instead, it was like they got to Love for a couple sacks, but Green Bay had, as I try to get to the end of the quarter, they had 123 yards as a team on 25 carries, so, they got right near that 5 yards in average, like 4.92, but Dillon only had 53 yards on 15 carries, and then he ends up breaking his thumb during the game that knocked him out of this week's game, too, against Tampa. So, the one big thing that I had went over was, like, you can't turn the ball over and give them hope. Like, that's the one thing that you can't do against a team that you should put away. And, like you had mentioned, the interception, the fumble, and also, too, Keyshawn Nixon having that fumble on the punt return also. That, 3 turnovers right there. just kept the Giants in it. That's what play craft. So that was just brutal, inconsistent. But you kind of hope at that point, you know, they had been playing so well for the month before that this would be a kind of a one-time showing, and you know, maybe they rebound against Tampa. So, you know, before we go into the Tampa game, is there anything else you want to add on that?
I was very disappointed. That's all I was to say.
Yeah, it's fair. So yeah, going into Tampa today, the Battle of the Bays, and Green Bay's going in even despite the loss to the Giants as 2.5, 3.5 point favorites, depending on where you're looking. And on the social medias that I have for the channel, I put out there kind of what my predictions were, since I knew I wasn't going to be able to get a video out before the game, and I thought Green Bay would probably win like 24-20, and kind of foolishly I'd put Baker. I predicted Baker to throw 2 picks, which I don't think he had a single game where it was like more than one interception going into this year. Hold on, big play here real quick before I keep going. 4th and 3 from the 18. Let's see. I think I can hit under. Let's go. But yeah, so I mean, Green Bay's coming in that game. Christian Watson, Jair Alexander, Darnell Savage, A.J. Dillon, all out. But you get Aaron Jones back, even though he's on a limited count. And then Eric Stokes finally getting to play again. And he had really not had any sort of defensive play from like almost 2 years at this point, it feels like.
Yeah.
But, Tampa was going to be without Carlton Davis. They also had Devin White inactive for this one. Vita Vea was doubtful going into it, but he ended up being active. So, going into it, Tampa tends to, kind of let teams throw on them pretty well, but then they clamp down when they get to the red zone. The stats, I want to say Tampa was like top 5 in the most yards allowed per pass attempt on the season. Touchdown, Quadzilla!
Sweet.
But, yeah, so I mean, big thing, like I mentioned, they keep teams out of the end zone, and they don't allow too many teams to run on them. I think they only average like 4 yards per carry allowed against them. So between that and the secondary being banged up for Tampa, and all and Green Bay's own running game issues with Dillon being out and Jones being on snap count, it kind of felt like you were going to get a show us what you got Jordan Love type of game. And
yeah.
I mean, he performed really well. Like, you can't blame him for the loss. His stat line ends up. I was going to say, his stat line for the game was 29 of 39, 284 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He only had the 1 turnover, but that was trying to extend a play on a 4th and 10, so that way, it wasn't a complete turnover on downs from the get-go when you're already trailing.
Yeah.
Let me see. Wicks was leading receiver at 6 catches for 97 yards, and he's been playing pretty well overall. Bucs, kind of clamped down like expected in the red zone. Green Bay had 4 red zone opportunities, got 2 touchdowns, one of which the drive started on the 4, and they also got a field goal out of that. So, I guess first off, any thoughts on the offense today?
I don't know why we didn't run the ball more. I understand that Aaron Jones was coming off a MCL injury, and I get that you don't want to take him out, throw him out there for 20, 30 carries or whatever, or touches, I should say. That's unfortunate.
Yeah. Looks like the defense today.
Yeah, for real. You don't want to put him out there and risk the re-injury by putting him in at 100% immediately. I get that. Why not run with Patrick Taylor more? He looked pretty good against the Giants when he got a handful of carries. And that's specifically what his role is. I honestly don't understand why we just didn't run more in general. Love, for the most part, was fine. I mean, he had a good stat line. He didn't throw any interceptions. Like you said, the fumble was on a 4th and 10. And, in any other situation, he probably just takes the sack but in this case, he was trying to extend the play because it was at the end of the game.
Yeah.
So I'm not, I don't really care too much about that fumble. He didn't throw any interceptions. I don't remember there being too many interception-worthy passes, where he just got lucky. But there was still some very errant throws. There was a missed touchdown on the fourth down conversion. I mean, that should have been a pitch and catch, and his footwork was all over the place, and he just threw it wide. There was a few other passes like that as well. So even though he did well, I think he was 29 for 39, right?
Yeah, 29, 39, and I think 286 is what I said. 284.
Yeah, so I mean, he did well. His stats look solid, but it could have been better.
Yeah.
Overall, I think the offense did well. There was definitely some times where the interior O-line just got whooped, and that contributed to some of the other problems that they had. Nice juke.
Thank you.
And then the weird juke out of bounds.
I did that on purpose to try to save clock.
It was just more weird that it was a juke and not just stepping. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the offense. I don't know if there's much else to say. They did decent. Wasn't mad at them. You'd hope they do better, but the Bucs, even though their team has been struggling and they haven't looked great this year, their defense isn't terrible.
Can get my guy to turn. But yeah, and I mean, to support your thing about the running game, once the Kraft TD happened, Green Bay at that point had 9 carries on the first 2 drives. As a team, they only finished with 8 more carries the rest of the way. So they only got 17 carries in this game for 60 yards, or about 3.5 yards per carry. Walk in. But yes, I mean, overall too, like, pretty much agree with the offense. The defense, yeah,
Fire Joe Barry.
Like, I want to borrow the cannons from the pirate ship over at Raymond James and just fire him in the sun right now. Yeah, I mean, going into it, the running game for the Bucs hadn't been great for the year, but recently started to kind of pick up. White for them had, in the previous 3 games, every game over 80 yards rushing, 2 of those being 100-plus yards. So because of everything on Monday night with how bad the running game had been, I was a little bit concerned that the Bucs would have kind of a bigger day on the ground, and it was kind of like a not as bad as I guess I expected on the running defense. White only finished at 89 yards on 21 carries. Now, having said that, Stokes gets the pick there with my usual pick. He ended up like having a touchdown that he could have had a touchdown, but he laid down to make sure that they sealed the game. So it could have been worse, but the big daggers at the end were from his running game too. He had the 4th down conversion on the Bucs' final drive, and also, like I mentioned, the 22-yard run that he could have put away for a touchdown and made it a 40-plus burger for the Bucs. Mm-hmm. So even though Green Bay didn't allow 200 yards on the ground like they have 4 times this season, what the actual hell was that from the passing defense? They made Baker Mayfield look like Tom Brady in his prime came back for the Bucs to just absolutely whoop our ass. And this was like back-to-back, or after back-to-back weeks where he couldn't even hit 50% of his passes. He was 14 of 29 in the previous 2 games before this.
Yeah, I mean, we made DeVito look like a very good franchise quarterback, and we made Baker Mayfield look like a god.
Yeah. Just to give the absolutely embarrassing stat line as soon as I kick this real quick. All right, 2 scores at halftime. So Baker goes 22 of 28 381 yards and 4 touchdowns. Per CBS after the game, that made him just the second visiting quarterback to throw for 375 plus yards and 4 touchdowns at Lambeau Field. The only other person was Randall Cunningham back in 1998. He's the first visiting quarterback at Lambeau to have a perfect passer rating. And the most aggravating thing was just kind of how easy it was. Godwin running wild as they played pitch and catch. He had over 100 yards before halftime and finished 10 catches and 155 yards. You had Evans with the open touchdown. Moore had the big catch and run for that 55-yard touchdown. And then I saw just like a few minutes before we hopped on, ESPN mentioned, or at least a tweet, I think it was from Aaron Nagler talking about ESPN, just against the zone defense in general, which we ran like 2/3 of the time today. Baker was 16 of 20 for 255 yards and 2 touchdowns. So just absolutely shredded them. So I mean, going into that, I thought Green Bay would need to get pressure against Baker, and if they could force some turnovers, like Tampa was 0-4 going into the game when they had 2 or more turnovers. So, after admittedly a bar so low that it's through the floor, like after you get embarrassed by Giants, I thought they would do better, with the pressure. But
the Bucs were also 1-5 coming into that game, or 1-6. 1-6 coming into that game where they gave up 2 or more sacks. We sacked them way more than 2. We had 2 sacks in the first quarter.
5 total on the game, including Enegbury's strip sack that set up the touchdown.
Yeah, so they ended up with 5 sacks. They were 1-5 going into the game where they allowed at least 2 sacks against the quarterback, and it really wasn't even close in the final score.
Yeah, like the defensive line did pretty solid all day. The edge did all right. It wasn't like they were getting killed by a quarterback scrambling like DeVito did, but geez, like I don't know how many times we have to see a linebacker guarding a top receiver for a different team, or at least one of the top receivers.
I know that Godwin got at least 3 big plays, not just in yardage, but situationally, big plays, when Devondre Campbell was covering him one-on-one in man coverage. And I get that you call the defense, and depending on what the offense actually does, you're going to end up with mismatches. That's the whole point of the offense, is to try to generate mismatches with linebackers covering receivers, etc., etc. But it was like Joe Barry just never adjusted.
Yeah.
And it got worse in the second half.
Yeah, that was just absolutely frustrating, embarrassing. And then, like, they go to the post-game press conference, and LaFleur got asked directly, like, about, would this be the time to kind of consider a change for the defense coordinator? And his thing was, like, now's not the time for that. He's going to review it and all that. But I'm like,
I mean, to be fair, the after-game press conference is not the time to actually talk about that.
Yeah,
they could have fired him 5 minutes later, and there's no reason that he would have. Yeah, there's no reason that he would have given a different answer in the post-game press conference.
Yeah, and I'm not expecting him to either. It was just more of a like, damn. Like
it sounded like I don't want to talk about this because I think your question's dumb.
Yeah,
and not. Yeah, this isn't the time or place, but we'll review it.
And I mean, it's just frustrating too because Green Bay was sitting there as the number 7 seed. Looked like, despite all of the injuries, all of the cap tied up because of whether Rodgers being cut and all that stuff, like this young team still has a chance with the user pick. But maybe they get some playoff experience this year, and we've never said that we expect them to go win the Super Bowl this year. But damn, it'd be nice to see Jordan Love and company get some playoff experience under the belt. And instead, like, it wasn't really. I mean, one game, the offense wasn't great, but they still at least got the lead at the end. But the defense has failed them back-to-back weeks. And
As bad as the offense played against the Giants, they still had a chance.
yeah.
And then the offense today, yeah, you'd want them to score more than they did, but it's not like you can't win most of your games by scoring 20 points. You can win a lot of football games if you average 20 points per game. Oh,
Let's go.
what a weird touchdown.
Yeah, it was.
You got like whipped into the end zone. But yeah, I mean, if you're averaging 20 points per game, it's not the best, but it is a serviceable offensive output. You can work with that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, I'm at the point where it's like, I would like to see Joe Barry gone as far as defense coordinator position goes. But with how they've been picking up defensive coordinators for a while now, since pretty much after Dom Capers was let go, it seems like it's the same stuff every single new hire. So I'm nervous about even if we let go Barry, can it get worse than what it is right now? Because we always at least have like that one little stretch throughout like a season where Green Bay's defense, like, they look okay, like you still don't have confidence necessarily, but like they look better. And maybe this time it'll change, and then it doesn't, and that gets sad.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's a institutional thing. Like, is it Mark Murphy? He's been the president for a while. Like, is he the one that says, no, this is going to be the philosophy? It seems kind of a dumb thing for him to do, given his position. He's not one of the coaches.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I agree. We had Dom Capers, and other than like the beginning, that was an interesting play. Other than like the beginning of the Capers reign, his defense became a bend but don't break. Make every quarterback look good, but they're not going to score points because we'll tighten up in the red zone. Defense, they hired Mike Pettin, same thing. They hired Joe Barry, same thing. Are they just hiring guys that's going to be their philosophy, or are they telling those guys that this is what we want you to do? I don't know. They don't have the information to answer that question. But having said that, regardless of what you want them to do, you can have a bend but don't break defense that doesn't suck.
Yeah, pretty much.
And today, there was no bend. It was just broken. They gave up soft coverage. They gave up big plays. They gave up big plays on soft coverage. Like, it was terrible at all the phases of defense except for the pass rush. Which even then, there was plenty of throws today for Baker where the pocket was perfectly clean.
Yeah,
there was like no one around him.
Yeah, it was like if the Packers didn't get any pressure, it was a wrap for the defense on that play. Like, they couldn't string together 3 consecutive good plays, it seemed like, to save their life.
No, and even when they got the two good plays in a row, they were both on the defensive line. A run for a short gain and then a sack or something to that effect, or a rush throw, whatever it happened to be. There was a few good highlights periodically of a DB, and of Valentine had a really good pass breakup against Evans. I believe it was in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I think so.
He played it perfectly. He slowed Evans up at the line, disrupted the flow of the play, and then he reached around him. He did not do that, otherwise that would have been a penalty. He was able to get around him and bat the ball down. It was a great play. But for every one of those, there was like 4 plays where they just got absolutely torched.
Yeah.
Mike Evans wide open on a third down on a simple curl route. Why?
Yep. Wasn't there like
Godwin
that?
open on like every play that they threw to him.
I was gonna say, wasn't there like a 2nd and 29 that they got like 24 on because they were just wide open?
Yeah, I think so.
But, I don't know.
Yeah, because it was at the end of the first half. It got him in field goal range.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It was just, it's frustrating. Like, I guess like the one thing I'll be looking for is after the Bears game to see if we actually get a late gift of like actual change happening this year. Because Joe Barry's contract's up after this year anyway, so I don't know.
I will be very aggravated if they re-sign him because this is the third year under his scheme, and they look worse this year than any other time under his scheme.
Yeah, I want to say the DVOA rankings going into this one had us as a bottom 3 defense, and then that was even getting boosted. Or no, I think they were 28th, but they would have been 30th if it hadn't been boosted by the Rams game, because it doesn't take into account for the injuries, but it tries to take into account for the strength of the opponents that you're playing. Oops. Oh well, good for him. Don't know why you're showing when you're down, but that many scores, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, I will be very aggravated if they re-sign him because his contract's out. I still think he should be fired, but they probably won't do that.
Yeah, especially with the contract being up in 3 weeks anyways, even if it costs them a playoff berth in the meantime.
In my opinion, when you have a part of your team that's so fundamentally broken as the defense was today, you're 6-8. The chance of you making the playoffs is very slim because there's so many teams right here in our range, in our record range. I'm not saying the defense quit because I don't think that they did. But everyone was open for the Bucs all day.
Yeah, and I wonder too, like, because we got the, new DB coach and everything this year, that how much of that too is just defensive backs coach. I mean, it hasn't been great since Barry's been there either, but
yeah, but the thing is the defensive backs coach isn't teaching the plays. He's not teaching the scheme.
yeah.
He's teaching them the technique of playing the position. And if Joe Barry calls a defensive play where Devondre Campbell is covering a running back in man coverage off to the side or a wide receiver in man coverage out wide, there's nothing that the DB coach can do about that because it's not even a DB.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like there's going to need to be some wholesale changes on the coaching staff on that side. But offense, keep doing what you're doing. Like, they've looked good.
The offense is super young. The players that seem to cause the most problems aren't even the youngest ones, like Runyon. But the offense overall is super young, and they seem to be learning. The Giants game was a setback, for sure. Today wasn't always clicking great.
Oops.
Definitely some positives. That was not good. Definitely some positives from the game, though, for the offense. But there's nothing you can do when the defense literally can't stop anybody. Like you said, Baker Mayfield, the last 2 weeks, each week he completed the exact same amount of passes, which it came out to like 48% and some change completion percentage. And then today he had like 6 incompletions. And I think 2 of those were throwaways.
Yeah, I want to say between him and DeVito, the last 2 weeks, we've seen exactly 10 incompletions.
Yeah, which is horrible.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. I'm annoyed. At least I'm beating the hell out of the Cowboys in this one.
Yeah, that's always nice to beat the Cowboys, even if it's digitally.
I told you that stat earlier. That's all. Jordan Love's like, what was it, 470 yards away from taking over the single season passing yardage record
Yeah,
against the Bears.
470, 480, something like that.
So there are some fun things I guess to still think about, but
Da Bears.
the Bears still suck. The Bears still suck. That was a tight throw. I'm like, I kind of want to run out the clock, but I kind of want to keep scoring the Cowboys.
Fair.
So I'm doing passing plays with the. I always hate when like you throw a screen like that and they just straight up don't move for a minute.
Yeah, you're like, oh, well, thanks for blowing the play up.
Pretty much. Man, Musgrave is wide open on that one. You want to call a play? The guy's like, no, no, you're not. Friendly quit. Oh, hell no.
You're getting whooped. You're down by more points than you scored, and you want a friendly quit?
Alright, he did finish it up. What play would you like?
Well, there's only 42 seconds left. Are you
Yep.
trying to score more points?
Yeah.
I like 4 verticals.
Alright, we're going for verts.
You can always throw it to Musgrave if you just want the first.
Yep. Let's see what we got. Drop him back. Or I can throw a pick again, apparently.
Sir.
Yeah, I suck. To be honest, I'm still shocked that I got 45 points in this game without really paying attention.
Fair.
Like, I don't even know if this dude's playing just bad or what's going on. I've been focused on talking about the Packers and defense and apparently rage guiding myself to a blowout.
How many interceptions have you had in this game?
Bro, I have no idea. We'll check the stats after this game. It feels like 5 or 6.
Yes, it does. Are you gonna call a timeout?
I don't want to be that big of a dick. 4 verts. At least I didn't finish with the interception on that one.
Fair.
That is the worst Mike McCarthy in history.
Mad Mike McCarthy's almost scary.
Alright, let's see. 5.
Oof.
And unlike the real life Packers, held him to only 7 yards rushing. To be fair, that if you held somebody to 7 yards rushing, that's a great performance anyways.
Yeah.
But alright, so any last thoughts before we take off for this week?
I'm pretty certain that the last video I did was also after losing streak. And it just really sucks talking about them sucking.
Yeah,
Play
that's
the
fair.
Panthers next.
Dude, if we make Bryce Young look like another Hall of Fame god like we did Baker this week, I might rage quit this season.
I have absolutely no faith in this defense after Baker Mayfield torched them by just existing.
Yeah.
It's a game that they should win. It's a game. It's against a team that good teams will beat. And I have no idea what they're going to do.
I don't know either. They did beat the Falcons today, though, so that was something. But yeah. So I guess with that, thanks again everybody for watching. But Panthers preview will probably be up later this week. That's the plan, anyways. So stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, as disappointing as the last two games have been, it's still Go Pack Go.